Okay, welcome to Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Dashi Miller here from Warrior Concepts. And let's see, we're just going to dive right in. So if you saw the title of the episode, well, then you kind of have a heads up on things. I'm trying to adjust things here so that my head doesn't disappear behind some of the graphics that are on the screen. Anyway, all right. So let's get to take a look at some hidden stuff within Ninjutsu. Of course, Ninjutsu is full of hidden stuff, right? But we're going to take a look at this concept that I was introduced to almost from the beginning, right? Winning before the fight starts. Okay? What the hell does that mean, right? I mean, it's either a fight or it isn't a fight, okay? So while there's a lot of elements that go into this, the theme for this week that I started during Monday's Kuden podcast was on taking a look at this concept of winning before the fight, but we took a look at it from the perspective of the Ninja no Hachimon, right? These 8 core skill sets, disciplines, areas of training that in ancient Japan were required of any school who was supposedly teaching ninjutsu. They had to be covering these as a minimum. And then, of course, if you have the Togakure stuff or the Togakure's Ninja no Hake, right, the 18 areas of training, then you know that the Togakure expanded on this greatly. But, of course, right, it's not the Juhake, it's the Sanjiroku, Sanjiropo Hake, or K. Okay, that's what it is, right? So it's 36 fundamentals because the ninja of the Togakure school had to also know the 18 fundamental Bushi skills that were in existence because, well, how do you vary something or beat something that you don't know very well? Guess you could just rely on luck, which would be a place to start. So what I want to do today is I want to take a look at the Hachimon. Now we're not going all the way across with all 8 of them, but what I do want to do is take a look at these from kind of an inside out kind of perspective, because martial artists and self-defense people and fighters and whatnot can get hung up on the physical side of things. We can also tend to be literal too much as well. Right. And so here's a list. And so this is the official stuff and whatever. Okay. But what I want to do is I want to take a look at this this framework from 3 perspectives. We're going to take a look at it from the physical perspective. Right. What is it that we're doing? We're going to take a look at it from a psychological, mental, emotional. What if it's a non-physical conflict that we're dealing with? Right. And we're going to take a look at it from an internal kind of perspective, personal development, dealing with internal conflict. Okay. Because the cool thing about Ninjutsu is that it's a principle and concept based system and not just about style and technique and those kind of things. Okay, so we'll move through those. I'm having a printer issue here at the Academy, so I'm going to need to bring my notes on the screen. So let me just make that little adjustment here, and you'll be able to see me. I won't be able to see you, but that's okay. And for those of you who are saying hi and dropping comments and questions and all that kind of stuff, I will do my best to get to all of those after the episode is over. Okay. All right. So, and again, this is going to act as a springboard to Friday's class, but I don't know, might be a little bit confusing until I let you know what we're doing on Friday. Okay. All right. So let me find my trusty handy dandy marker here. All right. So again, we always try to start these. I always try to start these with a problem. And then again, for those of you who are new to this, this is a strategic and tactical class training. Okay. What that means is that the dancing monkey isn't going to be dancing for this class. So if that's what you're looking for, hit that back button and hasta la vista. Okay. So what we're doing here is taking a look at the juice that makes the physical techniques work or makes any of our skills work. And then Friday masterclass is where we'll be doing some aspect of this on a physical level. Okay. And if anybody has already taken a look at the Friday virtual training class, right, URL's right there. If you've already taken a look at that page or saw the little graphic that's up, right? Hatsumi Sensei has said this stuff before, right? Control, 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 right? He's not just repeating himself so that you remember. Not that that's not helpful, right? but we're controlling things on multiple levels. Okay, and so it's kind of a hint as to what we're going to do, but you'll see. Okay, so anyway, so let's start to solve the problem, and that is that most martial artists train for the physical fight itself, right? But the ninja knew that the best way to win was to never let the fight happen at all, right? That's why the primary skill sets, right? I mean, we've got plenty of physical things on here, right? But the primary skill sets are like psychological warfare, it's influence, and those kind of things. And then when it comes to technical things, skills and techniques and whatnot, the rule of the day tends to be hit and run, get the hell out of there kind of things. But Togakure is a very, very robust system. And what that means is that it also had battlefield guerrilla tactics and things like that, because the reality is that some things you can't influence far enough or enough, some things you can't avoid or evade, some things you need to deal with head on. And so where's that going? Okay. But let's get back to this whole idea of not letting the fight happen at all. Okay. We live in a world today where, and it's cyclic, right? It comes around a lot and whatnot. I mean, some people write letters to the congressman, that kind of thing. But it over the past couple of years, everything from riots to demonstrations to whatever, right? And then people end up finding out that their picture or their face ended up on a picture or on a video or whatever, and next thing you know, they're being criminally charged with something and they're going off to prison and whatever. Okay, so so much for invisibility. But if you were on for Monday's Kuden, I apologize. This is going to be a kind of a summarization of a story that I told about Hatsumi Sensei during that one, but I need to make sure everybody else is caught up. But this story illustrates this whole idea of avoiding the fight as much as possible. And it's not that we're avoiding it like cowardly avoiding it. We're not avoiding it because the damage is not acceptable or whatever, right? It's about controlling the narrative. It's controlling how things are perceived by the other person, so that brute force, either as an attack or as an oh shit defense, isn't necessary. Okay, so the story that I told was actually way back in the day. Of course, he's retired now. He's in a nursing home. But my teacher, Hatsumi Sensei, he's as long as I've known him, he's lived in the same house, same little side street in Nodashi near the post office, not too far away from Hombu Dojo and the main train station and whatnot. And so, but there was a point where the local, I think I did that on Monday too, the local Yakuza, right? Criminal elements, right? Decided that they were going to take over and tear down not only his house, but the entire neighborhood, so they could put up pachinko parlors, right? Pachinko is it's a very, very popular gambling kind of thing that goes on in Japan, even though gambling is illegal, but that could be a whole other conversation as to how they make that work. Anyway, so they were going to raise the entire neighborhood and pachinko parlors in, right? So Hatsumi Sensei could have, he could have signed a petition. He could have written letters to politicians who may or may not be in the pockets of the Yakuza. Who knows, right? He could have, right? Ninja master, right? Gathered all these master instructors and stuff and started taking out Yakuza, right? Pulling the whole Black Dawn and these other movies, right? Where the lone ninja or a ninja team or clan or whatever goes in and wipes the floor with the bad guy. And yeah, could have, except that's not what he did. Okay, what he did was he asked for a meeting with the top guy, and he had the meeting. And during the meeting, he was very, very respectful, uber respectful, and kept reiterating to this person, "You're in charge. You're in control. I'm just me. ultimately you're going to do what you do. Okay. But I did think that it would be helpful to you if I let you know that, you know who I am, right? So not that we're going to duke it out or fight or whatever, but my position lends itself to me having a higher than normal percentage of students who are in local, state, or provincial or federal law enforcement agencies, including Interpol, places like that. And while I would certainly tell them to please don't make waves, don't cause trouble, whatever, I cannot promise that they may not take offense and initiate or contribute to the initiation of something that could be uncomfortable for you. Okay. Again, you can do whatever you want. I'm sure that you have all of these things under control. I'm sure that you've already thought about these things, but I just thought it would be, I'm going to do my best to tell everyone, don't do anything. But they're foreigners, and we know how gaijin are. So just thought it was, they said their pleasantries and goodbye and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, when Hatsumi Sensei retired and went to a nursing home, he was still living in the same house, in the same neighborhood. They built a pachinko parlor somewhere else. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people who insist that ninjutsu is a martial art, just like every other martial art. And my problem with that is that they're focusing on the Budo Taijutsu or the Ninpo Taijutsu. They're not focusing on the other 95% of this art. Okay. And that's fine. People can focus on whatever they want, but therein lies the problem that when someone has a conflict or a situation or whatever, they're spending all this time training to handle when the fist and feet and blades and whatever are flying. Meanwhile, they can't survive an argument with their significant other or their family members or their coworkers at work or whatever. Right? And these are actually the areas where ninjutsu shines. Okay, so what I really want to focus on during this session is to kind of introduce the concept, right, that ninjutsu's 8 gates, this ninja no hachimon, right, hold the key to mastering combat or conflict in 3 different realms or on 3 different levels, however you want to look at that. Okay, so we're going to look at what I'm calling the omote, the kokoro, and the shiki. Okay, I'm sure most of you already know that there's 3 aspects to a ninja, someone who is a ninja, right? Again, there's another problem, right, where people tend to look at ninjutsu through the lens of movies or books or other media or whatnot, right? And then just that stuff doesn't, that's outdated and stuff, right? Modern ninja are like the spec ops teams, and again, see, they're still focused on the same area, the same things. Okay, and so that's not what makes a ninja. Right? What makes a ninja is how he or she thinks and how they operate in the world. Okay, it's not just this outer thing. Okay? That's what omote means. Okay, in this case, I'm using omote to reference or to point to the physical combat skills themselves. Okay, kokoro, which can mean heart, but kokoro in Japan or in the Japanese context means mind, heart, core, what makes us who we are. But kokoro is very often used to reference mind and whatnot. So in this case, we're going to talk about emotional and mental control and also dealing with like psychological and emotional attacks or conflicts and hardships and things like that, right? Relationships and whatever. Okay, and then so kokoro o shinobu is the development of the mind, right? And then shiki o shinobu, right, is the inner. Right, it's perspective, it's belief systems, it's those kind of things, right? So not mental, like how I'm processing a problem and all that. It's the who and what makes me me, right? So Shiki wo Shinobu, perspective and those kind of things, but it's inner mastery. Okay, so we're looking at self-control, we're looking at awareness. It's those kind of things that it's one thing to be aware, but there's something that dictates what I believe is worthy of my awareness or my attention. that kind of thing. Okay. So the big promise I'm making today, I guess, is that we're going to explore how each. Now, we're going to look at them across different realms because the assignment will be for you to fill in the blanks that I'm going to leave behind. Okay. But we're going to explore how each element of the Hachimon prepares you to win before the fight begins. Okay. Whether the fight is physical, verbal, psychological, or some kind of inner turmoil is going on. Okay. All right. So again, for those of you who are joining in late, I'm having a printer malfunction here at the Academy, so I wasn't able to print out my notes. So if you see me keep reaching in your direction, it's because I have to keep moving my notes around. Okay. All right. So let's do this very, very quickly. For those who are new to this, right? The Ninja no Hachimon, again, these were the core things. Remember that this is based on the technology of the day. However, if you understand how to translate it, then things like sword and shuriken and spear and things like that, what would that look like in today's world? There's ways to update this, but by and large, most of this translates all the way. Okay. Later today, after this is over and I get some other things handled, there will be an email going out to my general group and to the social pages that you may be on that will have a link where you can go and download a tool, a worksheet. It's kind of a cheat sheet kind of thing that I give my students for being able to take this traditional list and update it to today's world by understanding what the principles and concepts are that created this list to begin with. Okay, so we're not doing the I do modern ninjutsu route by scrapping a bunch of stuff and go, well, nobody carries swords, nobody carries stars, or it's illegal. Spear, what the hell is that, right? So we're just going to water it down, right? Or we're just going to look at this and go, so well, see, it's just a whole bunch of shit thrown together. So we're just going to do the same thing and throw a whole bunch of shit together. Okay, that's not the way it works, right? These principles and concepts are timeless. What we have to understand historically is that the things on the list, some are universal because they're universal. Some are on here because of the technology of the day. Okay, just like in my Mikyo study, right, meditation stuff. Traditionally, and I've had to do this with my own teacher. I sit down with a notebook, and he sits down with his notebook with one of these given teachings, and he will recite the Japanese syllables, right? Kanji, zai, bo, sa, that kind of thing, right? He'll translate this thing. They're usually esoteric texts, not the one I was just quoting. That one's, you can find that anywhere. So, and I have to transcribe it, okay, based on not just what I hear, but how I would write it down so that I'll say it correctly back. It doesn't matter if I understand correct Japanese linguistics or not. I'm going to write it down so that I correctly repeat it, right? And then we go back through it so he can give me the literal translation. And then I'm going to have a whole bunch of other pages where we discuss what it means, right? And what we're pointing to and what we're looking at and the depth of the lesson and things like that, right? Well, sensei, shit, why don't they just like make photocopies? Because Xerox didn't exist. Okay, some people make some really odd, or they ask some. I know they don't think they're odd questions, but if a question is not odd, then it's based on laziness. Okay, because in today's world with Google searches, shit, you can look up a bunch of stuff. Okay, and please make sure you look up from multiple sources so that you're not just believing anything that ends up on the internet, including my stuff. Okay, so. It's kind of like somebody who wants to know, there's a local martial artist around here who has combined Filipino stick fighting with Japanese martial arts, jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't like the hanbo and the Japanese sticks because they're too heavy, right? They're made out of cedar and stuff, right? And so he prefers the Filipino stuff because that's made out of rattan. And we were having a conversation one day and he goes, I just don't get it. Why did they just use rattan? And I said, well, that's pretty easy. Doesn't grow there. They wouldn't have had it as a resource. And even if it did in the southern regions, because that's what you're looking at, right? Even if it did, you're going to hit somebody with that who's wearing armor. It's not going to move them. Okay. So, again, we have to get past what it looks like so that we're not just making politically based decisions. I don't mean political like you've chosen a political party. I mean, you're making a decision because you like something or like someone, and I'm not choosing that because I don't like that thing, see no purpose in it, or I don't like that person. Right? It's kind of how most people choose their leaders. He speaks well, he dresses well, I like him, I get a good feel for him. I learned a long time ago in the military, I don't have to like my leader. I have to trust that he has my back, and I don't confuse the two. Right? So anyway, all right. So very quickly going down through these things, right? Ninja no Kiai, and again, they're prefaced with ninja no, because lots of other martial arts, non-ninja, had Kiai. Taijutsu just means body skills, body art, right? Skills using the body. Everybody has taijutsu, right? Ice skaters have their own taijutsu, right? So this does not imply martial arts. This implies using your body for the skills to complete the task that those skills are designed for. Football players, whether soccer or American football, whatever, right? Everybody has their own taijutsu, okay? Ninja no ken. How does a ninja apply the sword, right? Ninja shuriken. Other people had shuriken as well, okay? Sometimes the kanji for this middle character was swapped out, and sometimes it meant these small blades that we think of, and other times it just meant throw your short sword to confuse them so you can get your long sword out and kill them, okay? Soljutsu, right? This is spear, okay? I know in a lot of other arts, most other arts, it would say yari jutsu because yari is spear, okay? Soul, right? This part right here, okay, means monk, okay? Soljutsu, monk's art, monk skills. Well, there's a whole history lesson, okay? Looks like my pen's running out here, right? Kajutsu, firing explosives, smoke, that kind of stuff, right? Anything that's related to firing explosives. Ugei is influence, deception, manipulation, those kind of things. Also, within the Togakuryu includes entertainment arts, like being a musician or an actor, those kind of things. Because one, you may have to play one, and two, it plays into disguise, impersonation, those kind of things, right? And then Kyomon is knowledge, philosophy, spiritual studies, anything that would make you a well-rounded individual and able to navigate more than just I'd be martial artist circles, okay? This is also here. We'll talk about this down here. But Kyomon, right? The more you know, the harder it is to blow smoke up your ass. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. Ugei is the art of blowing smoke up somebody's ass. Okay. So how do you protect yourself against these things? Every system, every good system, classically, had built within their system ways to defend against their own techniques. Right? That allowed you to survive should some jackwagon come in, learn some stuff, pop a gasket, and decide he's going to use the same stuff against you. So how do you do that, right? So Kyomon is the antidote for somebody else trying to use deception, manipulation, and all that, right? The how else to say this, right? The dumber we are, the more ignorant we choose to allow ourselves to be, because, you know, ignorance is bliss, right? Okay? The easier it is to control us. Also, the more smart and knowing we think we are, the easier it is to control us. Okay? Got to be careful with that too. Okay, so this is the base set, right? If you get that worksheet, some of these things are swapped out with some other things or whatever. But we're going to take a look at the physical things here quickly as we go down, and then I'll take a look at other things as we go along. Okay, so first thing we're going to take a look at is this omote, right? Omote, the external skills for physical survival. Okay, so the gist of the lesson here is if you can't survive the fight, nothing else matters. Right? I've had other teachers say this in different ways. One of which is I can't do good in the world if I'm not in the world. Okay, that kind of thing. Right. Another one, if you have Jack Hoban's book, I think it's Ninpo Living and Thinking as a Warrior, but it could have been one of his other books. He has one on Tanto Jutsu. He had one on Bojutsu. But in there, he talked about the goal of a warrior and a sage or a monk or meditator being the same, right? Living a peaceful, happy life. Okay? But if violence occurs, the warrior can last longer. Probably. Because it's violence, right? Okay. So, again, I'll come back to a couple of these things here quickly, right? But, well, actually, we'll just do it this way. I don't have the time to do all 8 3 times, okay? So I gave you the gist of what these things are. Kiai is the use of voice, right? Use of voice and sound to manipulate and influence situations, okay? So my guys in today's world, right, they learned that, we've got other scientific or other sciences that have been developed along the way that we can integrate into this stuff, right? A lot of people, one of the common phrases within ninjutsu is people saying, I don't even want to do it the traditional way. I only want to do it the classical way. Okay, you do know that, like, when it comes to stealth, our stealth skills have to be better than our ninja ancestors, because the only thing they had to worry about were the eyes and ears of human beings and the eyes, nose, and ears of dogs. We have to worry about heat, motion sensors, all kinds of stuff, right? Pressure. It's not the same. It's not the same. Okay. So Kiai in the modern world could involve things like neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, right? So word patterns and being able to pick up on what somebody's personality type is like, those kind of things, but being able to mirror back, right, certain key points within someone, and we tell the world how we process the world, right? One of those little pieces in modern Kiai, right? NLP, and I know everybody thinks of them as shouts and all that, okay? Some people have been taught that this is what you yell when you deliver a strike, right? Kiai, or in Korean, Kyomon. No. I mean, you could yell whatever you want, right? But there are certain, what this is pointing to is tone, inflection. There's a certain intensity. It's energy coming across as sound, as opposed to like my shuto hitting uko on him. That's energy coming across as blunt force trauma. Okay. So, but in NLP, there's a little piece in there, a part of it that's called Satyr typing. Okay, Satyr, Satir. It's named after a woman named Virginia Satyr. She was a scientist, and way back in the 70s when this stuff was being developed. And what she discovered was that we human beings, when we're speaking, okay, we tell the world which of our 5 senses we predominantly process the world with. Okay, so someone who is sight-oriented will say things that sound confusing, or they sound impossible. Like, you see what I'm saying? Okay. Do you see what I'm saying? No. I can't. My eyes don't process vibratory waves at the sound level, but people say it all the time. Okay, they'll use words that have to do with sight. Okay, how'd that look? Those kind of things. Right. Somebody who processes things auditorially, mostly, right, will say, "Hey, I left that report on your desk. How'd it sound?" Well, unless the report was a recording, didn't sound anything. Unless the wind was blowing through and ruffling the papers, there was no sound. What do you mean? How did the words sound? I had to read them. Okay? But they'll use things like that. Somebody who's a tactile processor will say, you get what I mean? Okay? You feel me? Those kind of things, right? So if you start tuning into those kind of things, people will tell you. Why? Why is that even an issue? Because there's this thing called mirroring. Right? If we want to establish rapport with somebody and begin influencing them very, very quickly, right? What we do is we identify what their Satyr type is. The quickest way to do it is to identify what their Satyr type is, and then I alter my own speech pattern. So I'm predominantly sight and psych. Okay, so I can do third person. Like, one should be careful when one makes decisions, lest one finds themselves in a world of hurt. One, what the hell are you talking about? Okay, well, it's neutral. It's very cold. Okay, but I tend to use sight a lot more than other things. But I'm very adept at being able to switch. Okay, and so within 5-10 minutes of a conversation with somebody, I know that part of their personality. So when I communicate with them, I use their Satyr type, not mine. Okay, because subconsciously they make that connection that we're pretty much the same. And if I can mirror body language, that adds another level. There's all kinds of cool things that go along with this, right? So there's that. There's, again, tone and inflection, all kinds of things that go along with this, right? Taijutsu, most people know what Taijutsu is. This is just normally associated with the unarmed combat system. Most people even throw weapons into the Taijutsu stuff, whatever, right? Ken is the ninja's shorter sword. And I mentioned this earlier, in the Togakure school, the Togakure ninja were required to know the omote, the obvious, or the conventional warrior skills, right? So katana and all these other things. So when we're talking about ninja sojutsu, right, ninja spear, now we're talking about not the conventional spear, we're talking about modified spears, right? So there's a lot more in this that has to do with stealth and missions and whatnot that may not be employing the spear like a spear, right, to be poking people, okay? Ninja no shuriken, thrown blades, that kind of thing, but the ninja often use, in the samurai's realm, shuriken was almost always thrown blades. In the ninja's realm, weapons were rarely, if ever, thrown, because you're throwing a weapon away, and if the guy's wearing armor and your shuriken sticks in it, you're just going to pull it out, throw it back at you. Okay? Hope you didn't poison tip it, yeah? Okay? But more often than not, they were used handheld. So it's not the same, right? Or they were used to send messages, or they were used to start fires and all kinds of stuff, right? Kajutsu, this really has to do with distraction and causing disorder and those kind of things. Yeah, could be, right? But in today's world, that's going to have some three-letter agency, people in suits and sunglasses and shit showing up at your house, right? So how does that convert, right? Ugei, again, deception, manipulation, influence, those kind of things. But you said it was, no, this is an aspect that could be tied into it, right? You can affect somebody just by the way you act, the way you carry yourself, the way you dress, all kinds of things, right? You can let their mind come up with whatever, right? And then these are just different topics to learn, right? So very quickly, right? Ninja no Taijutsu, right? So physical evasion, which should be the beginning for everybody's training. If he can't hit you, he can't hurt you. If he can't hurt you, he can't beat you. Okay? So physical evasion, right? What else do we have in here? Strikes, kicks, other cool techniques, right? How to twist them up like a pretzel, choke them out, all that kind of stuff, right? Throws, locks, whatever. Okay? So tactical focus here, right, is maintaining distance, positioning, balance, those kind of things, to control the opponent before they can effectively attack, right? This is one of those things I'm going to be working on. There's three avenues we're coming in for the Friday masterclass, and we're going to be focusing on Kiai. We're going to be focusing on the use of your eyes, and we're going to be focusing on Kiai, both the way most people think of it and in other ways, because what I want to do is I want to start controlling him and his perceptions. And if I can ultimately, if I'm fighting, I want to be able to break his body, break his mind, and break his spirit or his will to fight. And as many of those I can layer at the same time, the better things go. Okay. But again, most people tend to think about fighting body parts to body parts, and they just kind of it's not that will and commitment and those kind of things aren't in there. It's just kind of left up to the student, right? You got to be stronger. You got to be more confident. Okay. You got any, for instances, how to do that? Yeah. It's loaded in the scrolls. Okay. It's all good. All right. So Ninja no Ken, swordsmanship, right? So what are we looking at here? Okay. So we're looking at not just cutting, right, but mastering cutting angles, right? We're looking at weapon and shield, right, are the same. Okay. Typically, the Japanese did not have shields. Okay. So you didn't have block, bang, block. The weapon is the shield. It requires a higher level of skill, and also, from an internal standpoint, a certain level of acceptance of death, because if you look at Japanese armor, especially the later development during the Bushi periods, as opposed to samurai and farther back, right? Kamakura era, the armor was like this woven and interlaced pieces of wood and grass and that kind of stuff. It was almost like inverted baskets over the person, right? And a lot of people just have a heck of a time trying to figure that out because wouldn't a katana go right through that? Yeah. Well, how the hell is that armor? They didn't have katana then. Okay? They had the dachi and they had nagamaki, right? Well, those are just big ass. I mean, the dachi's just a big giant katana, right? No, don't confuse the shape with the metallurgy of the time and how that lent to the amount of sharpness to the edge, right? Fighting with a dachi is more like fighting with a staff or a spear than it is fighting with a sword. Okay, it's very, very different. Okay, so what we're really learning to control here is, again, cutting angles, range. Okay, if we look at these things right here, and you'll see this on the worksheet when you get it. Okay, these three, right? Why isn't long staff here? Well, because that's over on the Bushi thing, and besides that, everybody and his freaking brother knew how to use a long staff, right? Because they had to ward off these freaking wild monkeys in the mountains and stuff that will attack you in today's world. You can go on a tour into to some of these places, like if you go up to Hiezan, where the Tendai headquarters is, right? There's resorts and stuff up there, but there are signs all along the roadways, right? Stay in your vehicle, right? There are wild monkeys, right? And they will attack you, right? There are poisonous snakes, there's all that kind of stuff. But it was also a utility pole. It's what you carried down to the stream or the well with a bunch of buckets and stuff, so you can carry back the water you were going to need for the day, right? So, again, without history, we can tend to think that certain things are, whatever, okay? But if we look at these, okay, what we have are weapons for 3 different ranges, okay? Ken, the sword, was your close range weapon, okay? So dealing with close range weapons being involved. What the hell? Adapt and overcome. Close. There we go. Okay. Close range, right? Shuriken. If we look at it from the throne perspective, right? Now we've got a long range weapon, just like Kyudo, right? Just like Yumiya, right? Bow and arrow. Okay. And Sojutsu, right? That's your mid range weapon. Mid-range weapon. What about very close range? Well, that's called taijutsu, right? So if we converted this to today and we understood the principles based on range, how would we swap that out? What's our most common close range weapon, our most common long range or projectile weapon, and what is our mid-range weapon? Okay? So what else do I have on here? So let's see. Tactical focus here is it teaches body structure, it teaches timing, it teaches controlling space. Again, the weapon and the shield are one. It teaches you how to use your kamae better, those kind of things, right? These are critical for both blade work and for empty hand fighting. Okay, so what are we learning from it? Right? What is it teaching? Okay? Working with any weapon will automatically, by its very nature, fix problems with your taijutsu. Because if you have something longer sticking off of you and your angling is off, you have to do something really odd to keep that where it's supposed to be, but you've left yourself exposed, or if you move, the thing is no longer between you and him, right? Primary principle for weapons work is what? Keep the weapon between you and him, always, right? So Ninja no Shuriken, right? Again, focusing on the throwing side just as a place to start, right? So now what are we looking at? Okay, Shuriken, okay? We're looking at precision targeting. It's small. It's precision targeting, but not just because it's small, the targets that would be effective on somebody else, given that they're not just going to crap themselves because you threw a shuriken at them, okay? But the people that they would have had to deal with way back in the day were wearing armor, okay? Any of you who have my my shuriken training manual, right? It's just an introduction to the shuriken, right? There's a page in there that has 2 black shapes, right? There's a square, give or take 3-4 inch by 3-4 inch kind of thing. It's like this, okay? And then there's a rectangle that's about like this, okay? And so I tell everybody, just print out a whole bunch of those pages and let that be your targeting. Okay. Instead of having like points and all that kind of stuff. Well, why those? Well, because a samurai in full armor only has generally two, sometimes three good targets to go for if you're going to be using these things for distracting and whatnot. They weren't killing tools. Well, you could kill them if you cut a vein. I could, but right from 30 feet, from 10 feet, whatever. Okay. So precision targeting, right? That rectangle, okay, matches the opening between the top of the men, the face covering, and the brim of the kabuto. Okay. So you had a shape about like this that you had to hit from a distance on the fly with him moving and you moving. Okay. And the square is the palms, maybe the backs of the hands or the tops of the feet, depending on what's exposed. Okay. And you have to be able to tag those things because if you miss and if you hit armor, you're just going to pull it back out and throw it back at you. Okay. So again, paying attention to what's going on. Okay. So let's see. And then Ninja no Sojutsu, the spear skills. Again, these are long range weapons, right? We already talked about that. It's a long range weapon, but I split the thing off into the throwing thing. That's my long range weapon because I can throw a shuriken farther than the end of my spear. Okay. But we're looking at controlling greater space. Okay. Shuriken is for when he's out of range. Spear is when he's in range, right? At this mid-range weapon. So it's still, people would still see it as a long-range weapon because they were 7 to 9 to 13 feet long, which doesn't seem, I mean, it already seems kind of amazing enough, right? For us, because I'm 5'6" and change, but the average Westerner, at least where I live, right? 5'8", 5'10", that kind of thing, right? So, yeah, it's okay. It's a little long, right? But when you consider that the average height of the guys that made this stuff up was 4 feet 2 inches, Imperial, yeah, that's way longer, right? So how do you control this thing? In our upcoming spring camp, I'm covering Kotoryu secrets, but we're also doing Yari. Okay. Yari has a cool factor to it, right? Some people like it. Some people want to learn traditional weapons. That's cool. But Sensei, why the hell are you doing that when your focus is always on like modern self-defense? Because the spear can teach you principles and concepts for weapon use and maneuverability to be able to surprise or sneak that working end in against him. It's a long weapon. Like, how the hell do you sneak that end in against him without him seeing it moving? It's the bigger it is, the longer it takes to get into. How do you do that, right? Because you learn it so that you can apply those principles and concepts to your shorter range weapons and ultimately to your taijutsu. It will make those skills grow exponentially. And just in case you happen to find shit laying around that you might be able to use, but what's the probability of that? Okay. So, but this is also dealing with somebody who might be swinging something longer at you. And it's also for dealing with, I'm going to call them battlefield tactics. But you could find yourself caught in the middle of a freaking riot or a demonstration going sideways or whatever. And how do I control space when there's other bodies moving around? Sometimes it's really difficult for people to get their head wrapped around the full context of certain types of training because in the dojo, everybody lines up a certain way so that nobody hits anybody else with a long staff or a spear or whatever, right? Sword. Everybody has lots of distance and stuff. How do you navigate space like that? How do you navigate space like that without a weapon when everybody's moving every freaking which way and they could be bumping into you, they could be tripping over you, you could be shifting back and tripping over somebody else, that kind of stuff, right? There's a lot more to this than just what it looks like, okay? So again, training your body to extend range safely, right? And overwhelm attackers through reach advantage, okay? Through reach advantage, okay? So again, just these 4 gates themselves, right? Taijutsu, Ken, Shuriken, Sojutsu, right? Just these 4 provide core skills that everybody needs, right? If you are forced to defend yourself in a physical attack, that's a survival-based situation, not a ring, not a fair fight, not a after school pushing, shoving, Saturday night drunken barroom brawl kind of thing, but where somebody's trying to take you out. Okay. So, but Ninjutsu's true advantage comes from mastering what happens before the fight starts. Right. So there's skills, there's principles in all of these for how to manage that. Okay. All right. Let's switch gears here a little bit. Right. So we're gonna come over here. Okay. Kokoro. Okay. So mental, emotional, that kind of stuff, right? Skills for conflict control. I think everybody can convert these things over. I learned Kiai, hit them when you're doing your thing, and Kajutsu. Okay, that could be firearms. It could be, a lot of people will discount things, right? I'm going to stay over here in the physical for just an extra minute. They'll discount things like this because, like, dude, if you do that, you're going to jail. I don't know, dude. I don't think people are thinking broad enough. Because if somebody gets me in a chokehold from behind, I only have seconds to get out of this thing. And what if he is so strong that I can't find the pressure point, or he has certain vocations like a carpenter or whatever, where this muscle is just freaking like steel, right? And you're just not hitting it, right? So if I fish in and pull out a lighter and flick my bic and hold it up under his arm, I bet that might do something. Okay, so. I don't care what my ninja ancestors did. That just gives me a hint, right? What they pass down more than tricks and techniques and whatnot is how to think. It's how to think. Okay? All right. So here's something to think about. What if the fight that I'm in is an argument, or it's emotional manipulation, it's harassment, it's whatever, right? As much as we would love to punch the guy in the throat, and how that would just settle things and he'd stop that stupidity, we also don't live in the same age where if a warrior back in the day was disrespected, you could behead the motherfucker. Excuse my language. But we don't live in a day like that. Now, one of our states here in the United States, they just shelved the law because of the backlash that basically said if somebody breaks into your house, your responsibility is to get out. If you engage with them in self-defense and you harm them, you're going to jail. Okay? So as nice as it sounds and as easy as it sounds, we don't live in the same era. Okay? So we can't just, Hatsumi Sensei said this one time. He said, we live in just sad times where you cannot teach somebody a lesson who needs one. And he was discussing, right, because a lot of people get away with a lot of disrespectful crap and ruining people's lives and all that because you can't stick a knife in them. Right? You can't punch them in the throat. You can't stop the threat long term. And so since there's no law that says he can't do certain things, as long as he doesn't put his hands on you, if you put your hands on him, well, you go to jail. Okay? And depending on the level to which you put your hands on him, you may go to the electric chair or the gallows or whatever they have in your country. Okay? So the crux of this is the stronger warriors win without fighting. This is in Sun Tzu's Art of War. This is in the Bansen Shukai. This is just Ninjutsu 101, 202, 404, right? So let's come back over here to the Kiai, right? Generally translated as spirit shout, okay? But what we're really looking at here is projecting power and presence, okay? Projecting power and presence. But, and I learned this from Hatsumi Sensei, in many realms, like Muto Dori. Muto Dori means without a blade, catch. What that means is he's armed and you're not. Always? No. Muto Dori doesn't mean that you don't have a weapon. Okay? At its worst, he's armed and you're not. Muto Dori also includes he has a weapon, you have a weapon, his weapon is bigger, longer, sharper, more powerful, right? I brought my clip knife, but he has a gun. That's Muto Dori. Okay? So how do I still win that? Right? And that's where this thing comes in, because most people look at this and they go, yeah, voice, right? Projecting power and presence with your voice. Yeah. And your posture. And what else? Right? Voice, posture, and intent. Projection of intent. Okay? Body, speech, and mind or intent. Anybody ever heard that before? The Sanmitsu, triple secrets. Okay? So it's not always what it looks like, right? So the tactical focus here is this is used to deter aggression, to break an opponent's will, to gain psychological dominance, right? To steal his heart, to steal his soul, to let him know, right? This is either a doomsday moment, or if I give him back, if I don't kill him, if I give him back his life, right? He and I have a very different relationship after that. Okay, so Kiai, right? And again, this is dealing with situations. So there might not be a physical technique at all, right? But somebody comes into my office or somebody comes into my realm and whatnot with the same bullshit they always do, and I say, no, don't even start. Have a day. I don't care if they have a nice day at that point. Right? They'll think twice before they come in that door again. So I didn't hit him. He yelled at me. Okay, well, you're not a warrior. Have a nice day. Or have the best day you can have with that kind of heart. Right? All right. So Ninja Ugei. Okay? Ugei. Something else is included here with Ugei, right? I've talked about this with the entertainment arts and all that, right? So this is artistry. It's performance. Okay? Ninja Ugei. Artistry and performance. Right? This is where something, for those of you who have my book on the Seishin Teki Kyoyo, right? This is where Kyojutsu Tenkan, disguising truth and falsehood, lies. Lies as in it lays, not lies as in it tells you bullshit. Right? So Kyojutsu Tenkan. Here's a little secret about Kyojutsu Tenkan. Okay, disguising truth and falsehood. If you're dealing with somebody who lies or twists things, or is always suspicious, they're always, because they do it, they transfer that to everybody else, and so they make these assumptions that nobody tells the truth, right? There's always a hidden message. I was married to somebody; their entire family operated that way. They did their best for a while to fix it, but you got to want to really know truth, right? But sometimes, a lot of times, right? Truth is, just lie to me. Okay? I'd rather be comfortable than to be authentic. Okay? Not me, however, which is what keeps me in trouble. Okay. But if you're dealing with somebody like that, okay, just be direct, clear, and just tell the truth. You'll have them confused for a long time because they will be trying to figure out what's really going on, and it will tie them up, and they'll be trying to operate based on it can't be that thing. That can't be what it is. That has to be the lie. So sometimes you don't lie to somebody, right? You don't switch the truth and falsehood. You tell them the truth because they automatically assume, either because they don't trust you or of the mental games they play, right? Or they don't want to believe that that's the truth. They'll lie to themselves. Right? So there are layers to these things. It's amazing stuff. All right. So, but with Ninja Ugei, right? This is mastering deception, misdirection, influence, those kind of things, right? Me knowing the personality types, pain points, and desires of my best students allows me to write articles and communicate on like offering pages for like the books I have and the programs I have and whatnot in a way that is not manipulative. I manipulate me because I have to take everything I could say and funnel it down to what's important to these people so that they look at this and go, that's what I'm looking for. So I don't have to convince them. I have to present something to them that, and I know how they operate because they're like me. Okay. So it's not deception and manipulation where I'm trying to lie to them or whatever, because I'm trying to establish a long-term teacher-student relationship with the best students suited to me as a teacher. Lying would be problematic. Pulling used car salesman tactics would be problematic. Okay? This is how I vet, and by being authentically myself and not bullshitting people and twisting things and telling people what they want to hear and all that, right? By being authentically me, guess what? I only ever get surrounded in my life by people who want to be around somebody like me with that kind of sense of humor, that kind of value, whatever, and people who don't, right? They don't like that honesty. They don't like that fat, old, bald, whatever, right? Guess what? I don't have to deal with them. They'll talk smack about me from a distance, which is really freaking funny, because if they were as brave as they say they are, you and I both know what they'd be doing, right? So the tactical focus here is in using charisma, using humor, manipulation, those kind of things to control the narrative before the conflict escalates. Okay. The parents of my youth students and the youth students are often very, very confused when I give them bullying lessons. We have this little card that we give the students that is 12 ways to beat a bully without fighting. And number one is make friends with the bully. Makes no sense. Why would I what? He's bullying me. Why would I want to make friends? No. Before you become the target or start to do things for them, whatever, to where, oh, you're not so bad, right? But why? What's the influence here? It's about the manipulation. People don't take advice from their enemies or their targets of aggression. They take advice or may take advice quicker from their friends. So if I want to, maybe he's not bullying me. He's a bully, but because I just said make friends with the bully. Become friend. Yeah, but people might think I'm just like that. Yeah, no, because I'm going to be me, right? But I stand a greater chance of influencing him by being his partner than by being a potential either target or whatever. Right? See, a lot of stuff just seems counterintuitive. Okay? But this is not, Ninjutsu is not about doing things differently. It's about thinking about those things differently that causes you to produce different results. Okay? This is not a style. It's a way of thinking and being. Okay? So again, very different, right? And then we have Ninja no Kyomon. I mentioned that earlier, right? This whole idea of knowledge and spiritual studies and those kind of things, right? So Ninja no Kyomon, right? This is awareness. This is discipline as tools for maintaining composure under pressure. Okay. Tools, so discipline, awareness, right? Maintaining composure under pressure. As a warrior, you shouldn't give a shit how well people operate when everything is going well. That includes people closest to you as well. You want to know who has your back? Watch how they operate when the shit hits the fan. Okay? Because, as my military leaders used to say, anybody can do well when all the conditions are good. Apply stress, apply challenge, apply obstacles, those kind of things, right? Which is why I cut off communications with people who want to do training and stuff, but they keep coming at me with like all the things that are in the way, right? Wife won't let me. The world is corrupt and things are set out that way. There's no way I can look. I can't help you. I can't help you. My job is not to be the used car salesman to convince you that rah, you are awesome, right? Because if I can convince you that you're awesome, somebody else can convince you that you're shit. Huh? Those things, right? Listening to someone's communications. tells me everything I need to know about how well they're going to do and how long they're going to stick around. Okay? Most people stick around just as long as it's comfortable, just as long as they're getting the rewards, belts, cue, pats on the head, whatever. Okay? The teachers I gravitated to in Japan, while in most classes, most of them would nurture students. But in private sessions or in other ones, they always had smaller classes because nobody's going to put up with being told no all the time. Right? If you need to be told, great, yes, you're doing a good job and all that, you're looking for validation. If you're looking for development and progress, you want to hear no. Well, you may not. I do. Want to hear no as often as possible. I don't go to Japan and drop $4,000 for 2 weeks, right, and train for over 40 hours so they can tell me how great I am and give me more rank. I want to come back with notebooks full so that in the interim, in the 6 months to a year before I go back again, I got plenty of shit to work on. Okay? I don't need to spend that kind of money for somebody to tell me how awesome I am. Shit, my grandson will do that for free. Okay? Unless I'm telling him to pick up his toys. Okay? So anyway, tactical focus here, right? This helps you develop unshakable presence and focus in moments of chaos. Okay? So the summary here, or to kind of wrap this part up here, is these skills ensure that you can control the emotional temperature of a confrontation, right? This allows you to win without resorting to violence or without taking something that's a problem and fucking escalating it. Okay? The kamae that we choose could escalate, de-escalate, or keep a situation from going anywhere. Okay? So, because the study of kamae is the study of body language and how it affects somebody consciously and subconsciously. Okay? Just like Kiai. Okay? Right? So let's wrap this up. We'll do one more here, right? So the Shikiwo Shinobu, right? This is inner mastery for self-control and awareness. It's kind of like where this one tempered off, okay? So again, a lot of folks tend to look at things from the omote, from the obvious side. Most people are going to get this, right? I'm learning to use the sword. I'm learning to throw shuriken. I'm learning all that kind of stuff, right? Because it's all about the fight, right? A lot of them can get their head wrapped around translating this for a psychological, emotional conflict, right? It's in a relationship, whatever, right? Okay. But where most people miss it is being able to apply this to me being my enemy in the moment, to me being my own attacker. Okay. So this leads to the crux of this part of the lesson, which is the greatest battle you will ever fight is the one inside you. It shows up over and over and over again across martial arts realms, philosophical realms, all that. Okay. If you are your own worst enemy, that fight, that physical fight or that argument or whatever is going to be way worse. Okay. So let's go back through these again, just a couple of these things very, very quickly, right? So Ninja no Kiai, right? Ninja no Kiai now is self-talk. Okay. Self-talk. Right? Jeff, you dumb son. Really? Shit. Well, that was my stepdad a long time ago. I just took his place. Right? I used to do that. Right? Bruce Lee, for those of you who are Bruce Lee fans, right? Famously said and had written it down in several different places, right? Never talk badly about yourself. Never demean yourself, even in jest. Because that part in your subconscious that holds a picture of you and who and what you are doesn't know the difference. Right? It just picks it up through the hearing thing, and it doesn't matter if you say it or somebody else said it. Well, I was just joking. No. Okay? Talk nicely about yourself. Otherwise, you have to hope that somebody else will. Okay? The ninja controls the narrative. The ninja controls the dialogue. The ninja controls the perspective. We start with ourselves. Okay? So this is self-talk. This is affirmations. This is, there's a thing, self-hypnosis, right? In Mikyo, where the Sanmitsu can be channeled inward, right? But this is also controlling the focus of your training. Whatever you think is bullshit, you're not going to do. Whatever you fear or dislike. I don't like rolling. Nobody gives a shit. If you're being sent to the ground and rolling's the thing that's going to save you, guess what? You're going to crash and burn. Okay? None of these skills presuppose that you like or dislike them. That's not the point of them being there. The point of them being there is so that you can control more situations easier and faster with less energy and less wear and tear on you in the process. So you can pick and choose all you want. Okay? Not you guys, because you're enlightened, right? But however we define something, huh? Nobody walks around with spear and shit. You don't need that in today's world. Okay. Anybody might pick up something like, I don't know, a pool cue, or, you're walking by, or you happen to be in construction, or you're doing some renovations at your house or whatever, and somebody pops a gasket for whatever reason, picks up a big ass long 2x4 and swings it at you or whatever, right? Do you know how to take advantage of the weaknesses, right? Because the strength for a long range weapon is its reach. The weakness for a long range weapon is its reach. However, the better he knows how to swing that, okay? So might not be, okay? So again, the focus to focus training, right? Focus training right here, right? Also is in, like, how about if we just ignore for a moment whether we need this stuff or not, okay? Focus training to internally override fear, anxiety, or hesitation, okay? What scares me? What makes me anxious? Okay. What kind of person? Right. What do I key to? If I'm sight oriented, it might be the way they look, the way they carry themselves, their size. If I'm auditory, that might be what I just named off might be secondary, but it might be the tone of their voice, or they have this kind of voice, right? Meanwhile, he's got the tiniest little freaking puppy, and whatever. Okay. So the tactical focus here is training yourself to stay calm, clear-headed, and decisive during danger or under pressure in an argument. Okay. Can you stay focused? Can you stay on task? Can you, right? Do you know how to prioritize so that your energy and your awareness goes where it's most needed? And can you stay there? Okay. All right. Ninja no Taijutsu. Wait, inner Taijutsu? Yeah. Okay. How about if we do our Taijutsu? I often have my students do Taijutsu, do their techniques, their kata, their waza, whatnot, at what I call Tai Chi speed. Okay? We all know what it looks like when people are doing Tai Chi. Right? Okay. So what we're really doing here is a moving meditation. Okay. So we're going to do it as a body awareness exercise. Because I need to find those places where my balance breaks, where stiffness exerts. So, but what most people do, what ego does when it's driving, is it'll make us go faster or harder through points where we're trying to cover it up. Okay? What we're doing is playing the lottery. We're hoping that we can cover it up in a fight where he can't take advantage of it. Well, if he can't see it, then he can't do anything with it. That's not true. Okay? That's not true. It could be accidental. He could just happen to bump into you or hit you at the moment where you have an issue, and you fall faster. Okay. So the other thing for this here is to condition instinctive movement when adrenaline kicks in. So if I just do body awareness kind of things, where I'm just repeating the same movement over and over and over again every day for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, right? What I'm doing is getting the synaptic pathways and the muscle memory conditioned so that becomes the new habit. Because ultimately, all of my skills, all of my movement skills need to be what I do all the time and not just when I think I'm going to be doing taijutsu. Because otherwise, if your brain takes a little freaking glitch and you don't remember, then you got nothing. Okay? As long as we need to think about where our foot goes, which kamae we're doing, what strike goes next, and all that, It's not in there. You're not going to be able to operate under extreme pressure when the left brain takes a vacation and all you have is habit patterns. Okay. When adrenaline kicks in, that's what we got. Okay. So tactical focus right here is in developing trust in your body's conditioned responses to avoid freezing under pressure. Okay. So, and then the last one we'll do here is the Ninja no Kajutsu, fire and explosives, right? Because the hell's that all about, right? I'm going to light myself on fire because I don't like the way shit's going. Nope, not doing that, right? This is understanding emotional triggers and destructive patterns in your own thinking. Fire and explosives is about burning shit down or blowing things up, okay? So how prone are we, or what types of pressure, what types of danger cause us to go off the deep end and go into a freaking anger management problem, right? Or fly off the handle, we're going to a rage, or we just start thinking more chaotically, we're less in control, okay? So, but this is understanding emotional triggers. If we understand it for us, then we can apply it better when we're doing the Kiai thing for using our voice, our body language, and those kind of things to not cause him to escalate. It's much easier to defend yourself against somebody who's in control of their actions and they're using their preferred logic than to cause somebody to go into a blind rage where they're just going to do whatever. Okay? We were taught a long time ago it's a whole lot easier to defend yourself against a trained swordsman than it is against somebody who has an axe and they're just swinging and hacking at trees. Okay? Because there's no rhyme or reason. You can't make sense out of that because he has no sense to it. He's just doing it, right? It's very different. Okay? So tactical focus here is this teaches you how to spot and diffuse your own emotional explosions, right? Before they sabotage your own actions, before they sabotage your goals, before they sabotage your relationships, before they get you fired from work, whatever, right? Before they make your friends not want to hang out with you, that kind of stuff. Okay. You know what? Screw it. I'll do one more. Okay. So let's look at Ninja no Kyomon. Okay. We'll look at this from the perspective of spiritual studies, and I don't mean religion. Okay. As meditative and mindfulness practices, this is for maintaining long-term clarity and purpose and a sense of calm, keeping the cortisol levels low, right? So Ninja no Kyomon, right? Meditative practices. What else do I have in there? Meditative and mindfulness, right? Okay, so just being mindful of self, watching things, whatever, right? Just practicing to kind of almost be detached a little bit. Okay, you're there, but you're not glued to it. Right? In Mikyo, we often say that where the goal is to be in the world, but not of the world. Okay? That doesn't mean you're a space alien or anything like that. It means you're in the same world that everybody else is. You're just not influenced and conditioned and prone to make decisions and shit like that, like everybody else is. Okay. Ego likes to convince us that we're different from everybody else. Meanwhile, we're busy acting like everybody else. Okay. It likes to make us think that because it makes us think that, right, we're not average. But you know what? Everybody thinks they're special. Everybody thinks they're not average, which then makes us what? Average. Okay. So you want to do different, you want to be different and whatnot. You have to do different things, but not to do different just for the sake of freaking doing different. Okay. It requires more mindfulness, more awareness. Okay. So the tactical focus here, again, is providing the inner discipline to see multiple options and opportunities in any situation and not be conditioned to always do it the same way. Right. Well, that's the way I do it because, like, that's my favorite kamae. I always start techniques with that particular thing over there. Like, it's just, look, dude, it's just the way I do things, right? It's just me, right? I'm this age and I'm just there's no changing me. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Bullshit. Right? So true mastery begins inside. Right? The ninja's inner disciplines train you to control your emotions, control your impulses, and control your focus to help ensure you respond powerfully and appropriately, not just when things are great, but when you're in high pressure situations. So there's the thing, right? It's just this all goes back to doing this stuff under extreme pressure and dangerous situations, not when, right, everything's already controlled. Okay, so again, to kind of reinforce the ninja's core principle here, victory doesn't come from overpowering your enemy. Okay, it comes from creating conditions that make winning easy. Okay, so again, I've got this course. I'm going to be releasing things, that little tool that I've made for my own students, and I'm going to be releasing it here later today. And then that's tied to, for anybody that wants it, we've got this Ninja no Hachimon quick course, and I also have a much more bigger, robust kind of thing. You'll be given the opportunity if you want to get it. If not, no harm, no foul. You can apply that tool or not. Right? Print it out. Don't print it out. Let it collect cyber dust like all the other stuff that's on our hard drives. Right? So, but it's a really powerful next step, right, for students who are serious about mastering this stuff and not just focusing on like one tiny little aspect of it. Okay, so what I just covered, right, and I know I covered a lot, but this barely scratches the surface. Okay, the quick start course takes it farther. The full-on Ninja Hachimon course takes it farther than that. As a matter of fact, with the quick start course, that's an ebook and a recorded class that I did with my inner circle students. I also have another workbook that I'm including with that, and an add-on course I decided at the last minute to do. So I got to finish up the recording and all that kind of stuff to get it up for everybody who wants it. Where we're actually going to go into the Togakure's Ninjutsu Hake, right, and look at that as well. Okay, so either way, right, on Friday for the Friday Masterclass, we'll be practicing some techniques, and not really drills, but we're going to be practicing techniques and some exercises from the perspective of developing emotional control, adaptability, awareness, that kind of thing, right? All the skills that let you win before the fight starts, right? We're going to focus on how Kamae does that, how the use of your eyes do that, and how the use of your voice at different points, right? There's always 3 points: before, during, and after the engagement, right? So that, because I may have finished one that I couldn't avoid, but how do I stop his friend from charging across here? Because, right, most people think it's because I devastated him so badly. Yeah, but if he picks up on the fact that you're now more tired and he's fresh, that's not going to stop him. Okay? It's not going to stop him. All right? Anyway, so let me jump back over here to my screen. Again, for those of you who posted comments and highs and all that kind of stuff, I will get to them as quickly as I can and as many of them as I can. But again, thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. We've been at this for, over 2 years, 3 years, something like that, just with these. Right? The Kuden podcast on Mondays, this week was episode 243. So somewhere in the 150s, 175s, I think, for these. So that's divided by 365, and that's how many years we've been doing it, right? Anyway, so if you're looking to do more training and all that, you can go over to onlineninjaacademy.com. There's other stuff over there. Hopefully, I'll see you during the Friday virtual training, even if you can't make it live, right? We do that through Zoom. If you can't make it live, then it's recorded. And if you sign up for it, even if you can't make class, you still get the lessons, okay? So if that works for you, great. If not, don't worry about it. I've given you more than enough to do a lot, right? So I will see you, if not anywhere in between. Hopefully I'll see you next week for our next episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Have a great rest of your week. Train hard.